we're going to kick off. We've got a few people stuck, etc. as usual in Johannesburg. Busy and stuck and going to customers. But welcome. I'm going to be giving you a short introduction. Expertech ERP, we're the distributors. We look after the product. And for those that don't know, we work with vertical products in the traditional ERP space. And we are agnostic, so we work mainly with the Sage and Microsoft Dynamics channels. The product we're looking at today, funny enough, is a typical agnostic product that plugs into the likes of Sage, ERP X3, ACPAC, Microsoft AX, Nav, as well as other things. So it's kind of the way things are moving, I believe. And in terms, just a quick sort of overview of where we think things are moving. ERP is changing, we all know that. So ERP, we're seeing a lot of downward pressure on ERP pricing globally in terms of companies investing in ERP. It's also becoming more generic. So ERP brands obviously still important, but the actual back office ERP is becoming more generic and all are becoming similar. The reason for that is we're seeing best of breed all-in-one. We've seen products like SAP that are all-in-one products, and the other extreme, the ACPACs of the world that are best of breed plugins around a vanilla ERP. But even products like X3, we're seeing products being added to it to deliver vertical solutions. So I think if you look at the space we're looking at today, construction engineering, project-centric organizations, it's certainly something that's not catered for well by any of the ERPs, hence the need for the vertical solution around that. What's making it easy though, we're seeing common platforms and integration, especially as we move towards cloud, which will dominate. We're all having this debate. It will dominate eventually. It might take another 10 years, but I think we're all seeing the move towards cloud generally, and ERP will probably be on the last moves to go totally cloud, but it's happening. And the part of the push for that is the price pressure. So what does an end user want? They want something rapidly deployed, and they want it cheaply, and if they can pay for it monthly, they'd prefer that than a massive investment. So I think that's kind of why we're pushing this way. So obviously the technologies we deploy should be lend themselves to cloud, web-based, etc., the web-native technology. Focusing on IPM Global, what is it? Well, it's a clever piece of software developed by a team of people that have been involved in construction engineering specifically since about 1997. And the team that developed, I don't know if any of you have heard of Sage Timberline. Yep. Okay. Timberline was the Sage, so I think the team, mainly Reef, we're going to introduce shortly, was very involved in the development of Sage Timberline and worked with the product until they kind of saw the light and said, what's the life cycle of this product, and should they be looking at an alternate platform, which they did. And using all their IP in terms of construction engineering and projects, developed IPM Global, the product we're going to look at today. It is a Microsoft Dynamics CRM platform-based product, which is interesting, because I get some guys saying, how the hell do you do project-centric stuff in Microsoft Dynamics CRM? Well, it's just a platform. The funny thing is that 90% of the technology you're seeing is Microsoft Dynamics CRM, okay? And the 10% IP is the clever stuff that makes it do what it does. But the beauty of that is standard technology, standard platform, and all the good things that come with the Microsoft framework, which is scalable, enterprise-ready, deployable, cloud, all the rest comes with it. The other thing about it you're going to see is that it's deployed and normally deployed inside of Microsoft Outlook, and navigation through Outlook only, obviously web as well. But the user adoption has been fantastic. So in terms of users that have adopted the software, the rate of adoption is very rapid, and the user, the whole migration into new systems has been very good because of the familiar navigation and framework. Originally developed for construction engineering, we are looking at it, and because project-centric organizations and service, in fact next week we're doing a big presentation that's purely service, a financial services organization, they all do the same things. Although construction engineering is probably the most complex of them, the software can be deployed in those markets as well. So infrastructure obviously is the focus. If you're a reseller or a developer or a software vendor, we should definitely be looking at what software do we have available to accommodate infrastructure spend. South Africa, I know we're talking about Africa now, because as we know in South Africa we're kind of the hub that moves, and we move our software up into Africa. Most of us are working in Africa. But just South Africa alone has got R1 trillion spend. They haven't started spending yet because they lack the project. Funny enough, the project side of getting these projects to happen is often the blockage, not the money, surprisingly. And there's a little article I just picked up, and I just went and Googled just before this and said, let's have a look at South African infrastructure spend. Now this was a month ago, the announcement of the public infrastructure spend plan, and the immediate spend that's immediately planned is 750 million rand. So it's substantial construction, and that's excluding, obviously the private sector construction gets pulled into this, But that's excluding pure private sector infrastructure, and building and construction and roads would be part of this. But that gives us some idea of the size of it. So at that point, I'm going to introduce Reef Fielding. Reef is the Technical Director at IPM Global. He's based out of Brisbane in Australia. That's where I, in fact, met Reef originally, and he travels around the world. He's just come back from the US, and he's come back to South Africa to visit us and do some work with us these couple of weeks. So I'm going to introduce Reef to you, and he's going to take you through a couple more PowerPoints, and then we're going to look at a live demonstration. And we can keep it as interactive as you like. So if you'd like to ask questions, Reef, is that all right?
Sure, absolutely.
As we go, talk, and we can try and answer some of the questions as we go. So Reef, thanks very much.
Thanks, Bernard. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming to see us this afternoon. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time. You're all busy people. Bernard's making me feel a lot younger than I am. He told you that I started working in AEC in 1997. It was actually 1987. Okay. So I've been doing it for a very long time, and it's got to the stage now. And I guess a little bit about us, a little bit about our background. I've been working, all of that time I've been working in the ERP space with construction software, but also we did a lot of work with generic ERP. So to give you an idea, I was one of the first ACPAC consultants in Australia. So back in the mid to late 80s, I became an ACPAC consultant. So you know, we've been I guess in the same sort of space for a while. One of the slides that we would usually have here is why build a project management system? What's special? What was the opportunity? And really the thing that we've noticed over the last 15 years is that construction software really wasn't evolving. It's all old. Our experience in Australia, there are a number of large products on the Australian market that are anything up to about 40 years old. Probably one of the premium products in the Australian market from a client-based perspective is a product written on PIC. Now, how many of you actually even know what PIC is? Yeah, yes. Only a handful. And so that tends to be the landscape that specialises in construction engineering. And our experience in North America is exactly the same. So there are some products that look a bit fresher than others, but most of them are still very old, and certainly they don't do what products these days need to do. In the last 10 years, we've got email, we've got the web, we've got lots of functionality, the new technology that's come out, and the software just generally isn't addressing that. Now, when we started to develop IPM, we went out looking for a platform. We went out looking for something that was going to give us a cutting edge into what was a very underserviced industry. And we'd been doing a lot of work with CRM systems for a long time, and we settled on developing on the Microsoft Dynamics CRM platform, which Microsoft promote as a development environment. They'd promote it as a development platform. So what makes IPM different? Well, all of that, but the main thing that really makes it different is that platform. The platform brings an enormous amount to the table. For those of you who aren't familiar with Dynamics CRM, I'll give you a little bit of a feel for it. For those of you who are, I'm probably preaching to the converted. The most significant thing when we walk into a presentation, as soon as we open up the presentation and we start showing the software through Outlook, we've suddenly got some buy-in from the audience. And you have no idea how painful the lives are of a lot of our audience. People in construction have to control every single communication. They have to file them all, and they're all filing it. We can sit down and talk to a client, and before they even tell us what they're doing, we can say, well, you're controlling your projects on spreadsheets. You're filing your email either in your Outlook folders or on public folders, and you've got a public folder on your server, and you've got a folder for each project, and you've got documents filed into those folders, and you know, it's all exactly the same. They're all doing it exactly the same way, and it's all done badly, and they all know it. The problem is, in the past, we've always been trying to address that with accounting systems. We've been trying to extend accounting software so that it covered operations. And I did it for 20 years with the product Sage, which is now Sage Timberline, or I think they actually call it Sage 300 CRE, whatever that means, and failed dismally to get buy-in from operations because it was always too hard, and project people will always take the easier option. And so what we tried to do with IPM was we tried to make IPM the easier option. So it actually did stuff for them that they were finding difficult to do any other way. So as I said, we open up in Outlook. It reduces our training. It reduces the number of logins that they've got to go to, so they don't have to go to a separate application, and it gets us buy-in with the users from the outset. So the sorts of things that we do in IPM is we manage the contract. Now, a lot of you who are involved in ERP systems, you've probably worked with job cost systems, and you look at some of these things and say, but these are accounting functions, okay? Well, job creation, yeah, I guess that's an accounting function if you're using a job ledger. The way we integrate with accounting systems is we don't really care where you create the job. You can create it in IPM, you can create it in the accounting. We will synchronize it back in backwards and forwards. You record the original budget. So you set up all of the parameters around the project actually in IPM. Why do we want all of that in IPM? Because that's where all of the project reporting comes from. We track variations and variation requests. So all of the change management around the project is in IPM. None of that is actually an accounting transaction, so it's got no place in an accounting system. We do the billing. And I don't know how many times I've seen people try and use non-construction billing systems to do construction billing. It's not pretty. So we do the billing, and then when we've finished the bill, when it's been approved, because these things do take time, we then push it through to the accounting system. We do RFQs and purchase orders and subcontracts and subcontract variations. So we manage the whole procurement cycle. And there are specific things that we do there that you just can't do in a regular accounting system. But at the end of the day, we can push those orders through the accounting system so that they're where you think they should actually end up being. We do something that you're probably not familiar with. We do something called ball in court. Now, ball in court is really interesting because what it is, it's an approach that we actually had to be taught by North American consultants. Our clients weren't using this terminology, and it's a matter of managing documents as they move around the people, not just within the organization, but externally. So when you create a document, you're going to start off and you're going to say, well, I've got all of these people that have to see this document, and you need to control who's actually sitting on it, who's got to approve it yet, and it may not be approval, it just may be that they need to acknowledge that they actually received it. And so we've built some technology around that. We manage resources, so we track timesheets. We track timesheets. I was going through with some consultants yesterday, all of the different ways that we can actually record time in the system. And so we've built over time a number of different mechanisms for collecting time on both people and equipment resources, and we then consolidate those into a central timesheet facility, and we can then send those timesheets off to payroll systems and off to accounting systems and so on. We do what we refer to as planning and forecasting. Now, I'm not quite sure if we've got any construction people here in the room, but if we do, then I'm going to apologize because I'm not going to go into anywhere near enough detail for you guys on our forecasting approach, but I'll show you some of the things that we do. And it's really about subjectively evaluating a project and working out exactly where you're up to, how much more you've got to spend, and being able to report on that. And also to report on the cash flows around the project. So I'm going to show you what I believe is probably the first cash flow report out of a system you've ever seen. Because I know I've been talking about cash flow reporting to my clients for over 2 decades, and I have never, before we developed IPM, I've never actually produced one out of a system. It's always been a case of, yeah, well, you do that in Excel, and you'll grab some figures out of here and there, and you'll do it in Excel. You can print it straight out of IPM. Okay? We manage documents. Now, again, for those of you who are not involved in construction, you'll look at these and think, well, meeting minutes? Why am I interested in meeting minutes? Issues, defects, risks, and what the hell's a transmittal? These are all construction documents, and if I'm talking to a construction audience, they know what these things are, and they are very much part of their day-to-day operations. And if we're looking at any of those things, for instance, an RFI is a request for information. Okay? So I might create an RFI, send it off to somebody, the response I get may then need to turn into a variation. And it may also need to turn into an extension of time. Or it might go the other way. I might submit a notice of delay and then it'll turn into an extension of time and a variation. So all of these things are all related to one another. And the beautiful thing about the Dynamics platform is that it allows us to tie all of those things together using the Dynamics workflow engine. So we have extensively used the Dynamics workflow engine. We've added a lot of functionality to the workflow engine to support some of the things that we need to do.
As an example with drawings, to what level of detail can you go? Well, I know who has which version of which drawings at a particular point in time.
You will.
Okay.
So for instance, if you introduce a new version of a drawing, we have a workflow that will generate a notice out to all of the recipients of those drawings in the past. And depending on which components you have, you'll have a hyperlink on that notification, and they can click on that and download the new version. All right. Okay, mobility. Mobility is a very important issue for us. Certainly in Australia it is. We work with some interesting sites in New Zealand where mobility is a challenge, and I'm sure it's a challenge here. So we utilise CWR Mobility, which is the standard mobility option for Microsoft. There are actually two products that are well known for mobility, and CWR is the one that we've chosen to work with. It's actually supported here in South Africa by
Mint, M-I-N-T. Yeah.
Mint, yeah. Okay.
Is Mint here?
Yep.
Very good. We leverage the platform, so the Dynamics platform. So we use dashboards, we use the workflows, we use reporting services, and of course workflows for notifications. So that's all standard part of the platform. We also have a document management component. So this is, and are there Microsoft people in the room? No? Okay, good. Because they would typically want me to be talking about SharePoint. And because we're built on a CRM platform, we can natively integrate with SharePoint. But there's a lot of development you need to do with SharePoint to get functionality that gets anywhere near what we do out of the box with our standard document management system. So for instance, this is what you're looking at here are screenshots of a portal that is literally delivered out of the box. If you want to customize it, I'm sorry, you can't. But if you want something that we can deploy in an hour and have external parties immediately access documents that you've decided you want to provide them with, then we've got that, okay? And it's quite cheap. And it provides lots of other functionality, but it is a native CRM document management system. It doesn't store the documents in the CRM database. It actually stores them in a file store in a library. But as I said, it provides external access. It uses all of the standard CRM security mechanisms to control those documents. So in summary, we do contract control, we do resource management, we do time costing and billing, planning and forecasting. We utilize the platform for dashboards and so on. We have additional components. So our core product is the product on the left. Our add-on products, we've got our document management piece, our document portal, mobility. We have a product called IPM Link, which is an out-of-the-box accounting integration component. And we have out-of-the-box integrations currently with 6 different accounting systems. And we are adding new ones to that list all the time. Our approach really is, we don't need you to change your accounting system just to improve the management of your projects. We have Primavera integration, and Primavera may not be terribly widely used here in Africa, but Primavera is the project scheduling or programming tool of choice in North America. So we integrate with that directly. We do not currently integrate with Microsoft Project. We can create a project file, but we don't actively integrate with it because it's very difficult to have an ongoing conversation with a file that could be on somebody's notebook. And we have a piece called Mail Manager, which does some email scraping for us, so which is quite an interesting piece. So, before I start, any questions? Now
So, is it only used by the construction industry?
No, it's not. It's used in a wide range of project-related industries. So I guess probably one of my most unusual clients is V8 supercars. Now, I don't know that you're familiar with V8 supercars, but in Australia they run basically the Australian equivalent of NASCAR, which you probably see on your sports channels. And so they run 16 events a year, and they run IPM to manage all the procurement and the budget and so on for those events. But also, because it's built on a CRM platform, they also use the CRM system to promote their events and to find sponsors and so on. So they're quite a broad.
That's the PJC deal to in Australia, Brisbane Gold Coast, isn't it?
That'll be the one. That'll be the one. Yeah, yeah. So so a broad range of companies, and interestingly, even in construction, we're not just talking to the contractor. So from a construction perspective, a number of our clients are actually project management firms, which are actually a nice target for us, because project management firms tend to have a lot of professional staff. So they might have 200 or 300 project managers, and they are running projects for other people. Okay, so they're really a professional services firm, but they use our software because they have to work with all of the construction documents, all of the regular construction documents, and just in a slightly different way. Okay. Yes.
So what is the skill set needed for this product? If I look at Microsoft Dynamics, I mean, if we don't have any skills on that, or what would we be looking at in terms of our consultants? And how we will be trained up in, that type of thing.
That is a good question. The short answer is we will generally train consultants in a 2-day training class in the software itself, but we rely heavily on the CRM platform. So there are some skills that you need to build up fairly quickly with the dynamic CRM platform. So, and we certainly spend a lot of time working on those in the training classes, customizing forms and workflows and so on, showing you how to use our workflow technology. But it's certainly not somewhere where you need an ERP background. But any background that you have, certainly working with any CRM product, can be an advantage, because they all seem to have the same sort of functionality. It's really funny. We used to work with the Sage CRM product, and when we first moved to Microsoft CRM and I went to the administration area, I will swear they use the same icons. It was just so familiar. So if you have any CRM, and when I say CRM background, I'm not talking about Salesforce automation. Being able to teach people how to do process opportunities and leads is irrelevant to us. It's really just how to use that platform. Okay.